Meanwhile, back at the lair.
This reminds me of this one nature show I saw where a frog was able to freeze over winter and survive. Its heart and body stops entirely, and glucose acts like antifreeze, and it just waits till it's warm again.
Kathy mused as she observed a snow globe, raining tiny flecks of white onto a small village.
No one's found out how to do that with humans yet, though. I hope I'm wrong.
Adam amended as he observed the pictures he took with a look of concern on his face. One of the many monitors suddenly showed a news report with an Iceman on it. Adam clicked for sound, and Kathy came over when it reached her ears.
Again, this is a sculpture of a person made of ice. They have apparently been popping up lately around town. No one knows who placed them there, but they are very dangerous. Police are asking for anyone with any information about anything similar to be reported immediately to the station. Police are refusing to release any further details about the case, but they say if anyone is seen placing one at any location whatsoever, call the police immediately and do not engage the person.
Adam muted it again.
I guess they're trying to prevent a panic.
Kathy mused aloud as she walked up. Adam rubbed his chin.
I suppose dangerous is better than saying there are abducted people inside, or that they're just ice. Someone might decide to break them. And I can't imagine what it would be like for that person to find out they accidentally murdered someone that I hope is alive.
The next day, Adam returned from some mental training and cardio and found a box placed near his equipment stand wrapped in wrapping paper. He eyed it curiously, then with a smirk upon checking the tag, opened it. Inside were several listening and recording devices and some other knickknacks. He read the paper found in the box.
These are updated to retain functionality during extreme cold. We shouldn't have any issues like last night if I upgraded them right.
Adam smiled. Kathy suddenly rushed by.
Oh, hi. Thanks for the new upgrades. I didn't think they were super necessary, but it's always good to have functional equipment. Where are you going? Is something up? Did I miss an alert?
Oh, no. I can't find that one bread I made. Where is it?
Why are you looking for it?
Because it matches my outfit perfectly.
But it's evening. We have a lot of work to do. Patrols for more sculptures, bug monitoring, possible mayhem activity leads. Matches your outfit. What, are you infiltrating a Christmas ball?
No,
Kathy suddenly realized she hadn't told anyone. But then why should she? Her entire private life wasn't up for just about everyone to know.
I have a date.
Oh. Well, that's kind of last second, isn't it? I mean, we are trying to save people's lives.
Look,
Kathy said with exasperation.
We're also trying to live, right? I just want this one date, okay? Where is that thing?
When is it?
6.
Oh.
Adam looked at the clock reading 6:01 p.m. Adam caught a glare off a piece of jewelry in the box he had just opened earlier.
With who? Wait. Scott? The cop?
No, that's private.
Kathy, what matters is the mission.
What matters right now is... Adam, I'm not leaving for good. Just for a few hours.
Ouch. Low blow. Adam reached into the box and held out her barrette.
You're right. Here. Just make sure he's not some kind of serial killer or something.
Adam soberly jested. Kathy, feeling bad, stepped up and reached out and took it, and let a weak smile pass across her face before stepping back to her scooter, head low, feeling a little ashamed at her snap. She took off up the ramp. Adam smiled sadly to himself and walked back to the computer wall. Kathy screeched into a parking spot outside the restaurant, hitting ice and sliding a little too far, and hit into the sign marking what kind of parking was what.
Ow.
She slid and excused herself, and even once pushed past the various people waiting on their seats, all selfishly clogging the inside of the door because of the cold outside. She looked around the restaurant as she didn't hear the hostess asking if she could help her.
Oh, please still be here, please, please. Aha!
She saw him, and her smile lit up. Marco, seated at the back corner of the entire place, waved and smiled. Kathy walked a fairly brisk pace to him. He stood to greet her.
I'm so sorry I'm late. Something came up and I had to tell everyone no, and there was just so much to do, and it was just a hassle. And
It's okay, really, it's fine. I've been late to rehearsal once because something important came up. I understand.
She placed her coat on her chair and sat. He smiled and sat as well.
I see that she has arrived,
the waiter said as he approached with a smile.
Yes, she has, and we will have what I ordered for us. You can bring it out now.
Oh, yes, of course, sir. Kathy's eyebrows started to knit for but a moment at the exchange, but she quickly undid them so as to not seem rude.
Oh, I guess you've been here a few times,
she said to smooth over the awkward exchange with the waiter.
Ah, yes, I know the very best dish on the menu. I'm sure you'll like it. I had them begin preparing it, as I knew you wouldn't dare stand me up. So it should be... here it is now.
Oh.
And the waiters brought the food, and at a somewhat sharp dismissal, the waiters were gone, and they were alone. The food was indeed good.
So, would you like to see my play again?
Marco asked, as Kathy stuffed her face, unsure when she ate last. She suddenly stopped, realizing noodles hung from her mouth. She slurped them up and wiped her mouth bashfully.
Well, I saw it once, and it was very good, but...
Excellent. I have tickets for you tomorrow as well.
Oh,
Kathy answered, seeing Marco removing a napkin to reveal 10 of them.
10,
Kathy observed, the strangely large amount.
Yes, one for every performance left. I didn't know what days you had free in your schedule, but if you want, come to them all.
He smiled. She laughed in a way where you are thankful, but also pity a person that may be acting a bit odd and not know it, but you're trying to hide your discomfort from them anyway. Marco grabbed them up, and then grabbed her purse without asking, and then placed them in it. She smiled without smiling with her eyes.
Now, shall we have dessert?
But I'm not
Waiter, dessert, please.
Marco mouthed the last part at the apparently tip-anxious waiter. And so a waiter hastily came around behind Kathy and removed her half-finished plate, and another waiter suddenly placed ice cream in front of her.
I do love ice cream, don't you? Even when it's cold, I love to eat it, even outside.
Marco said as he shoveled a loaded spoon into his mouth and swallowed it almost instantly. Kathy was about to answer as she looked at the ice cream that did indeed look very tasty when suddenly Marco moved to rip something from a package.
This is my favorite part, though, adding chocolate.
And at that, a small dark chocolate shaped like a frog fell into her dish.
Oh, wow,
she said, beside herself a little, and trying to hide it.
A frog.
Did you know,
Marco said between mouthfuls,
that there are frogs that can freeze solid when it gets cold, and they live from Alabama all the way into the Arctic Circle?
Kathy was about to respond when the mention of frogs freezing suddenly struck her as odd.
Oh, I actually do remember hearing that. I was honestly always curious how it worked.
It's amazing. When it gets cold and their feet start to freeze, their livers dump glucose in high amounts into their blood. It turns into a form of antifreeze. And then they dig a hole and cover themselves, shut down their heart and organs, and allows them to survive even negative 54 degrees. Isn't that fascinating?
He said that last part in that awkward way when an excited child forgets to use their inside voice. Kathy forced a smile again and looked at the poor chocolate frog, and then thought about the frozen people they were trying to save. Were they dead? Dying? Were there any new leads? Who was missing from their family for Christmas? A little guilt trickled into her soul as she pushed the little chocolate amphibian through the melting ice cream as if it were a muddy puddle a real frog would enjoy. She liked chocolate, though. Who didn't? And decided to go with it, ignore the guilt, and have fun. She scooped it up with a mouthful of ice cream and bit down. The chocolate frog suddenly squished a gooey texture in her mouth. She tried not to show how odd it made her feel.
Oh, that's the fudge inside. I wanted it to be a surprise.
Kathy forced a smile with her eyes as she suddenly found herself having difficulty swallowing chocolate and ice cream for the first time in her life. Then again, the thought of biting down on a frog and something like its guts squishing out into your mouth was making it rather awkward. She finally swallowed hard and then excused herself to the bathroom. But as she got up, she recognized his red hat on the booth seat next to him, and it was slightly tattered on the end. Kathy looked into the mirror. The argument she'd had with Adam was bugging her. It had not been fair of her to bring up the past like that, especially when she knew he was just concerned. With her guilt as a possible influence, Kathy took out the small rhinestone barrette from her hair. After switching the homing device to on, she placed it back into her bun. Now, if anything did come up, or Adam needed her, at least he'd know where to find her. But now it was time to ask about that hat. Was it the same one from the crime scene? Was it the same one found nearby the frozen person in the park? Kathy checked to make sure she still looked put together, and then walked casually back to the table. Marco smiled that wonderful smile of his, and asked if she wanted any more of her dessert, that he was holding and about to consume.
I'm fine without it.
Kathy smiled back through her immediate regret. How was she going to continue their conversation now?
All right,
Marco said happily.
How about some coffee at my place, then?
His voice began to border on shy as he looked at her with caring eyes.
I'm just not ready to end the conversation yet, and I'm sure the restaurant could put our table to good use.
That sounds nice,
Kathy agreed, thankful for an organic reason to keep talking and see if he could possibly know anything helpful. She casually reached up and feigned adjusting her earring back. She wasn't ready to label Marco a potential suspect, but also she couldn't let her affections get in the way of her instincts. She had to be smart, and putting on the comms audio would be enough of a signal for her partner to at least put up his guard. Adam leaned against the motorcycle. He knew he should be in the lab helping Night Shadow analyze the strange compounds in the ice fragments they had collected from the warehouse, but he couldn't focus. He kept going back to his argument with Kathy. So what if Marco had bad timing? Could Adam really blame him for the uptick in the sculpture's public appearances? Adam's watch buzzed and brought him out of his thoughts. Kathy's communicator had been turned on. He almost wrote it off as accidental, but something else caught his attention. A barely audible beeping was coming from the computer room. Getting up from his perch, Adam made his way through the door and looked up at the large screen. One of Kathy's homing devices had also been activated. But why? He thought. Surely this was a purposeful action. He decided to trust his gut and synced up his watch with the supercomputer's map so that Kathy's coordinates would be sent directly to it. If this was a series of random events, Adam could just return to his work with the ice crystals. But Kathy did not sleep with dates, and she wasn't headed towards her apartment or the lair. If Kathy was in some kind of trouble, he'd be there. Kathy wasn't sure what she'd expected Marco's home to look like, but the immaculately manicured lawn filled with marble statues was not at the top of her list.
Your garden is lovely,
she stated politely, as he helped her out of the car.
Thank you.
He grinned.
I've been known to dabble in the arts at times.
Kathy hesitated.
Do you mean you carved all these?
She gestured to the sculptures. Marco chuckled.
Not all of them, no. I'd like to take credit for some of the more realistic creations, but sadly, I can't.
He paused for a moment and looked admiringly at a marble figure of a woman holding a small bird.
It's hard, you know,
he mused.
Achieving realism, I mean. You have to have just the right canvas, or it all looks wrong.
There was silence for a moment as Marco gazed across the museum of a yard. The statues seemed to bring him a great sense of pride.
It's a little brisk out here tonight,
he finally commented.
Should we go inside?
Kathy nodded her agreement. She was eager to get into the house and away from the knowing eyes and strangely haunting faces of the marble menagerie. Once inside, however, the strange feeling Kathy had gotten from the statues refused to leave her. She couldn't help but notice the blue and green accents in the home's color palette, or how everything was so perfectly positioned. Everything had its place, and nothing was out of order. It was strange to think of Marco dabbling in the arts, as he had put it, because Kathy's mind had wandered over to the frazzled artist stereotype who would, in her mind, live in a house full of color and at least a small amount of clutter. Realizing she was alone in the living room, Kathy quickly glanced around for the red hat and found it. She walked up to it and inspected it closely. It was the same hat. It had to be. She took a photo and then quickly walked to the kitchen and rejoined her date. Marco was busy fiddling with a stove knob. A sleek white teapot sat on one of the gas burners. The kitchen had the same look as the living room. Sleek, organized, cold. It reminded her of Hrax's office, a place she had often tried to block from memory.
Having trouble with the oven?
Kathy asked, pulling herself back into the flow of the evening. Upon hearing her speak, Marco turned from the stove.
No,
he said, calmly abandoning his task and walking toward her.
I'm just having trouble focusing on the tea right now.
Kathy didn't say anything. Though she was more than happy to be having tea instead of coffee, something felt odd. Marco seemed preoccupied, with more than just the stovetop. He seemed nervous. Almost in answer to her curiosity, Marco gave up his attempts to heat the kettle and turned to face her.
The truth is, Kathy.
He reached out and gingerly moved a strand of hair from her cheek.
There's something I've been wanting to do all night.
Her heart fluttered as he leaned in closer. The kiss was sweet and gentle. Marco's embrace felt strong and safe. All the doubt Kathy had been fighting began to melt away as he held her. But unfortunately, her happiness was turned to shock and fear within seconds as a high-pitched frequency exploded into her ears. Something was interfering with her calm. The pain of the frequency coursing through her skull made it difficult to open her eyes, but she could barely make out a small silver object in Marco's right hand. Her knees began to buckle as she struggled through the pain, and against his hold on her. Right when she thought her eardrum couldn't take any more, Marco flipped the switch on his device. The awful noise ceased. Kathy was disoriented, but she could feel Marco's breath as he began to speak directly into her calm.
"Hello, Blue,"
he said sinisterly.
"This is the sculptor speaking. I know you've been listening, so hear this. If you have any hope of retrieving your partner alive, you better come soon."